Here's a couple of other quotes, because again, I think this idea of spiritual disciplines has a lot of baggage with it. So maybe here's some other helpful ways of thinking about it. This is from Richard Rohr. Practices, rituals, disciplines, those are all the same thing to him. These are containers. They create the structure that can hold the presence of God. A spiritual discipline, or practice if you'd like to use that word, or a spiritual ritual if you prefer that word, they're containers that hold the presence of God. Here's an even simpler definition, I think, from Henry Nouwen. A spiritual discipline is the effort to create some space in which God can act. That's why what Katie let us in earlier could be called a spiritual discipline. We were trying to create space out of the normal routines and rhythms and chaos of our lives, space in which God can work, in which something might happen. This is what a spiritual discipline is. And I know that if I were to ask the average Christian what is a spiritual discipline, they probably would say something like prayer, or meditating on the scriptures, or maybe fasting, if they were a really good Christian, right? There are these spiritual disciplines that we have in mind, I think, and those certainly are. But, and taking a walk could be a spiritual discipline. Taking a walk doesn't have to be a spiritual discipline. It's very easy, actually, for it not to be a spiritual discipline, and that's fine. Go walking. Walking's good. You should walk, okay? But you could take a walk and have to be a spiritual discipline. If you were on that walk and had an intention of trying to create a space where you were open to God. Maybe that might mean on your walk you stop anytime that you notice something beautiful, and you're looking for beauty. And when you find it, you stop and pause and reflect. You do what we just did with Katie. You gaze at the image, you let it evoke certain memories. You create an openness on the walk. You could be sitting quietly with your pet and a cup of coffee in the morning. It's one of my favorite things to do. Usually when I do it, it's not a spiritual discipline, if I'm honest. I'm just up, I'm enjoying, I'm not necessarily thinking in that way, but that could be a spiritual discipline. If there is in that moment an openness to the presence of God. Some of you knit. I've seen some of you who are like really good knitters, and you just do this thing with your hands, and you're not really even thinking about it. It's like a meditative sort of practice. Knitting could be a spiritual discipline if there's an intention to create space where God can act. We'll come back to this idea in a moment, but spiritual disciplines, I think, can be almost anything that give us space, that create a container for the grace of God to move in us and through us. And if we're to bear fruit, if we're to be people of love, and joy, and peace, and patience, and kindness, and goodness, and faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control, we must tend to the soil of our heart. And the spiritual disciplines are one way to do that. Notice, though, how Nouwen concludes this definition. Spiritual discipline is the effort to create some space, that's our part, in which God can act. God acts in us. God is the one who transforms us. We have to remember this. Remember those apple trees in the front yard? We've tried our best to tend to those trees over the years. But what I've learned is that I cannot make fruit grow on those branches. I wish I could, but I can't. We cannot control how many blossoms sprout, each spring. This spring there were almost none. Why? 2 years ago there were so many. It was this crazy harvest. But we don't get to decide that. We don't decide how many apples are going to grow on this branch. Of the ones that do, which one will be the big one and which one will be the small one. We don't decide the date on which they will be ripe and ready to pick. There are lots of aspects of growing things that are outside of our control. Would you agree? The same, again, I think is true in our lives. We can make space for God to act. We can create containers to hold, hopefully, the presence of God. But we don't get to dictate how God might move, or the ways in which God might transform us, or how the speed at which it might happen. It's important to perhaps remember that these are the fruits of the Spirit, right? This is the work of the Spirit. These are not the fruits of Chris. I wish I could. I wish I could know the exact formula to turn myself from the selfish person that I often am into a more generous person. I can't make that happen by my willpower. I can tend to the soil, but ultimately there is this trust required that God will be faithful, even though it might not be in ways that I expect or in the timing that I might like. But God is trustworthy. So both of these things are here. Our role, which is to tend to the soil, and God's role, which is to bring about that transformation in us. Let me end with a question as we try and hold both of these things. What is one spiritual discipline you can begin this week to create a container of grace, to use Roar's language, to use a space, to create a space in which God can act, to use Alan's language? Just consider that for a moment here. The gift of kind of, the next 10 weeks is that for 10 weeks we're going to talk about the fruits of the Spirit. And that kind of gives all of us this built-in space to be very mindful of this in our lives. And so today, those of us here have a chance to just ask the question, what is one thing I could do as we begin this 10-week conversation? What's one practice that I can start? Again, I'm just going to end here today with inviting us to think about a spiritual practice or discipline broadly. To do that, I want to tell you about a man named Nicholas Herman. Lived in the mid-17th century, and he joined a monastery in Paris well into life. And when he joined the monastery, as one does, he chose a new name, Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection. What an awesome name, you know what I mean? This is what you got to do, though, when you would join a monastery. You would choose a new name to mark a new beginning. And that's what Nicholas was looking for. He was looking for a new beginning because he had been a soldier in the 30-year war, this war, 30-year long war that just ravaged Europe. He was wounded very badly in one of his legs, an injury that would plague him the rest of his life. But he went to this monastery after he got out of the war in an effort to perhaps start over. And there he worked in the kitchen as a cook, cutting vegetables and kneading dough and doing whatever else people in the mid-17th century did to try and make food. I imagine it was quite laborious. There is somehow this very average person Nicholas Herman, Brother Lawrence, began to find a different way to look at the work that he had to do every day. The menial, ordinary work that he had to do every day. And it became called a practice of presence. This is what he called it. And let me just read something. We can read something together that kind of speaks to his experience. Brother Lawrence's method of prayer, the practice of presence, is so simple that it might seem misleading. It is to cultivate and hand over one's awareness to God in every moment, in whatever we are doing. So for Brother Lawrence, every moment becomes an opportunity to practice a spiritual discipline, or to be disciplined in our practice. For him, cutting vegetables, washing dishes, kneading dough became these moments in which he would turn his awareness to God. So maybe for you, if this is true, that we could turn our awareness to God in every moment, whatever we're doing, then maybe for some of you, while you're riding your bike, or you're on a run, or you're preparing dinner like he did over and over, those ordinary moments could become moments when you turn your awareness to God. Brother Lawrence recommends that newcomers, that's all of us, to the prayer use a phrase to recollect their intention toward the divine presence, such as, "My God, I am all yours." He would say this while he would be washing the dishes. Or another mantra might be, "God of love, I love you with all my heart." Or, "Love, create in me a new heart." Or any other phrases love produces on the spot. Practicing the divine presence sometimes simply means taking brief pauses to love God deep in our heart and savor grace. It involves a surrendered and resting trust in God, to which one returns at all times. I like the way this starts. Brother Lawrence's method of prayer is so simple that it might seem misleading. I like that because I bet a lot of us are thinking it. This is too simple. This is too what? What is this going to do? How do I do it? It just doesn't seem to be like that big of a deal. But to him, and I think he was onto something, it became everything. So he offers these examples of what you might say while you're riding your bike, or knitting, cutting the vegetables, or whatever you are doing, to pick a phrase and to repeat it. God, create in me a clean heart. Right? And if you don't think Brother Lawrence wasn't interrupted while he was cutting his vegetables, right? He certainly was. Other brothers there in the monastery asked him to pass the pot that was next to him, and someone else came in and told him to start sweeping the floor. And like this, he lived in a normal world like you do, full of interruptions, full of chaos. But when interrupted, he would just, when he could, return back to the phrase, create me a clean heart. Mop in the floor, create me a clean heart. And this practice allowed whatever he was doing to be an opportunity to create space in which God could have. So, as we begin this journey, what is one spiritual discipline you can begin this week? If you're thinking, oh gosh, Chris wants me to read 6 chapters of the Bible every night. I mean, okay. First of all, don't consider really what I want you to do. That's number one, okay? Number 2, okay, yeah, read 6 chapters of the Bible if that's what you think would be the most meaningful to you. But feel free to think more broadly, to see any practice that you have already in your life. What are you already doing? And just shift a bit. entering that thing that you already do with a different intention. Okay. We get to practice doing that here as we come around this table, because we practice this every week. And it may be a very, therefore, familiar thing that we do. Anybody want to guess how we're going to do it this day, today? You can tell me. We're going to have a station here. We're going to have a station where? The back. Where's the gluten-free option going to be? Yeah, you know how this works, right? You've been here before. So here's a very familiar thing. I want to invite you to see it as an opportunity to make space in which God can act. And one way that you could do that would be to come to the table, front or back station, with a mantra that you're saying to yourself as you come down the aisle, as you take the bread and the cup, as you go back to your seat, as you sit there, just keep saying it to yourself. It might be one of gratitude. God, thank you for your sacrifice. It might be a request. God, help me start anew. Might be, God, thank you for your love. God, feed me what I need today. Right? I mean, it could be. But you could have a phrase that you bring to the table and back to your seat and hold on to as we share this meal. The other thing that we're going to throw in here, just to make it, make you really on your toes, is that there are all these little cups with grapes in them. And we want you to, we'll have bread and cup both over here so that you can get bread, a cup, and then a cup of grapes if you would like. And to take all those back to your seat, you can start eating the grapes as soon as you'd like, because this meal, when it was first celebrated with Jesus and his disciples, was the Passover feast, the Passover celebration. And in a very, I understand, small way, literally, we are inviting you to feast, to enjoy the bounty and the goodness of God. So that's here too today. And there are little cups at the back station as well. Do you need a minute to think of what you might want to, what phrase you might want to bring with you this morning? There's no right or wrong phrase. It might even be just a word. It might even be an image, an idea. I'll give you a moment as a couple of volunteers come on forward who would be willing to help serve today. That would be a gift, to be sure. Need a few people to do that. Go lines in the right. Mike. Thank you. Is there someone else who would be able and willing? Friends, these are the gifts of God for the people of God. We invite you to come and share them together. lots of groups, so come and enjoy them. And because we'll be back in the room too, I'm sure they'll help us in a moment with that. But, do you have that phrase that you have been carrying with you? I just invite you to say it yourself one more time as you take the breath. Again, say those words to yourself as we take and drink this gift. How's that phrase that you have considered here this morning is something you can take with you as you move into the week? It could be a gift that continues in the days ahead. We're going to sing one more song here, and then Tristan and I are going to share just an announcement, something that's happening here in the city. Let's sing about the song that is, again, about the presence of God with us. Let's enter this music. Why don't you take a seat just for a moment here? I want to tell you about something that is pretty unique that's happening in the city this week. About a year ago, actually, some churches started to come together here in the city to talk about how they might work together to benefit and lift up the city. And after a lot of talking and trying to figure out what would be the best way to move forward, what has happened is that this group has decided to spend a week, starting tomorrow, paying attention to 3 areas in a particular neighborhood. The neighborhood that's Cottage Road to Hall Street and Madison to Division. I think I have that right. A small little part of the city. Okay. And to pay attention to education, transportation, and housing. And what would happen if churches came together for a week, tried to focus on a little area, and just offer love? And so that is something called, the product of that is something called Bless the City. Starts tomorrow night, yes?
It does start, actually, I think starts tomorrow morning.
Oh, okay.
They're having their kickoff party after a day of work already, so I kind of love it. There are projects all throughout this week. Morning, afternoon, evening, there are 3 different sections of time in those areas that Chris talked about. Some landscaping projects that are like everybody can do, right? There are a couple of mechanic things. So if you're mechanically inclined on cars, they could really use your help. There's a bike fixing day.
Some of you.
I know some of you can do that. There are different opportunities just to clean up and organize some spaces into nonprofits in that area that do really, really good work in the city. A youth connection night and games and sports activities, that kind of thing. So there really is something for everybody to find a spot. So if you have some time, even if you see some time slots, Brian, would you put up that next slide? This QR code will take you to the Sign Up Genius. You sign up right there. Even if you see those time slots and say, I can't do 9 to noon, I can do 9 to 11, sign up, write a note on your sign up, and they would be more than happy to welcome you in that space. There is a party tomorrow night from 5 to 8 at the 1530, which is the event center at Grand Rapids Center for Community Transformation. I always have to think about that one. From 5 to 8, if you want to show up, you're welcome to do so. Meet some other community partners. I will pop in. There's t-shirts, by the way, if you volunteer. So if you can't make it, I could grab a t-shirt for you. You can tell me what size you need. But all of those things are happening this week just to bring all these fruits of the Spirit, right? To bring that into our neighborhood and to show love to a community. Simple as that. That's what the goal is here. Rosie, what is that?
QR code is broken.
That QR code is broken.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure it is. Yep.
Yeah, Bless the City GR, is that the website?
Yeah, but it's not on, their sign up isn't actually on our website. It was also sent out to you in our email this week, so if you are on our email list, it will be in there. If you are not, come talk to one of us and we'll get you hooked up here, okay? What? The sign up is on the website? Does it take you to a sign up genius?
I just put it on the group meeting too.
Look at you.
Good.
They're good.
Bye.
That's all. Thank you.
Yep. This is, it's interesting how challenging it is to get a bunch of churches to do something together. It's kind of funny, also kind of not, right? A lot of planning, a lot of work, a lot of talking. And it is just what it is. It's difficult to get different organizations with their own schedules and priorities moving in the same direction. But this is an effort to do that. And the hope is that if this goes well, that it would lead to other work in the future of churches continuing to come together. So it's there. We'd love to have you participate. I'm going to be at the Wednesday night housing and landscaping thing on Wednesday evening. It's like 4 to 8. I can't get there at 4, so I'm going to get there as soon as I can to Teresa's. Okay.
I don't be there yet, but I'll be there some point this week.
All right, friends, why don't we stand as we prepare to leave here this morning. And I invite you to receive this blessing this morning. May you be people who bear fruit this week so that you might bless the world. Be those people. Amen. Thanks for being here, everybody. Good to see you. Enjoy the sunshine. And again, No lines.
Kind of fun to have grapes this week.
Ironically, I have a conference.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that right now. Yep. Yep.
Well, great.
See you, Kelly.
I'm live.
We are, but not anymore. Bye-bye.
Oh no.